I've worked with hundreds of retirees over the years, and one of the biggest myths I hear is that you need some big, intimidating number to retire comfortably. For a lot of people, this magic number is 1.5 million, 2 million, or even more, and they're convinced they can't retire without it. But in reality, chasing that number can end up being the biggest retirement mistake you'll ever make. First of all, many people who lock onto a number like that end up working years longer than they really need to. And second, those that actually hit their number often die with millions left over and don't even get to enjoy the money they worked hard to save. So in this video, I'm going to break down why so many retirees fall into this trap of over saving. And then I'll jump into our planning software to walk through some real life scenarios to show you how this plays out and how you may be able to retire with far less than you think. So let's first start with, why does this even happen? And the reality is a lot of it is the headlines and the social media and the numbers that we see out there. There's lots of articles out there that saying, save, 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 you need this amount of money. We did a video about a year and a bit ago about how you need $1.7 million. I think it was BMO, if I'm not mistaken, that came out with that research that said you need $1.7 million to retire. And that's kind of spread out. There's been articles like that right across North America and abroad, where you need this very large number. And the reality is for most people, that's not the case. And I'll break that down here in our software here in a second to show you just how that can impact. And so many of you, we talk to you every day, we do plans for you every day. So many of you are working longer or saving way more than you'll ever spend. And again, some of you enjoy work, so you choose to work longer. Some of you are purposely saving more so you can help kids, grandkids, charity, whatever. Totally fine. But most of you are doing it because you have no idea. You're heading into the next 5 years of your working life with blinders on. And for a lot of you, you could maybe retire today. I think a few other reasons why this might happen is oversimplified rules, like the 4% rule. So you take a number, you take 4%, and that's, if you reverse engineer that, it gives you that number that you need. A lot of you aren't looking at other strategies like timing of CPP and OAS and how to draw down your accounts efficiently. Right? We do a lot of plans where we're able to retire people a year, 2 years. We've had 7, 8 years earlier just by running better strategy on how they actually draw down in retirement. So again, media, huge impact. The thought process of like the 4% rule or anything like that, where you build it out in reverse and it ends up you needing this really big number, or a lot of you just aren't planning, right? Simple Excel spreadsheet, you haven't done any proper planning, and you're actually working longer because of it. And why is this all so important? Well, we only have so many what we call go-go years, right? Those years from retirement to about age 75, that will be your healthiest years of retirement statistically. And in those healthy years, those are the years you want to do the things that are on your bucket list, whether it's travel, hobbies, new sport, whatever it is. Everyone's got their different bucket lists, but those are typically the years where you're going to check off most of your bucket list items. And that's why it's so important. Could you imagine if you could retire at 60, you have till 75. So you have 15 years of go-go years. But because you have your blinders on and you have this big number in mind, you work till 65. You've cut out 1/3 of your good retirement years. Why? And again, I'm going to break down that exact example in our software here in a second, but so many of you are living that life right now. So I want to set up these scenarios here. So scenario one is a 60-year-old couple that saved $800,000, some RSP, some TFC, I'll break that down, and they're ready to retire, and they need about $72,000 a year. The second couple, also age 60, also the exact same amount of current savings of $800,000, and they would love to retire, but they have a number of 1.5 million. They are not able to psychologically retire until they hit their number because they've watched some media stuff and talked to friends, and they figured that's the number we need to draw the income that we need. Well, the income is the same, $72,000, but they've never had a plan put together. They've never really crunched the numbers. They're living off of this large number of $1.5 million. And once they get there, then they're going to allow themselves to retire. So here we have Jim and Pam Helpert. Don't know where I got their names from, but just randomly came up with that. Here they have an RSP worth $300,000. Jim does, and TFSA worth $100,000. And I've left Pam at the exact same, $300,000 RSP and $100,000 TFSA. One thing that will change between the two scenarios is I have Jim and Pam here at 75% of max for CPP. In the other scenario, I've bumped it to 80 because they're working a little bit longer. So if we go to the planning page, you'll see here they plan to retire January 1st, 2026. With that $800,000, again, 75% max CPP. We've done a little bit of planning here in that we've delayed CPP. We're taking old age security at 65. And if we go to a combined view, the goal here was $72,000 a year in the go-go years of retirement. That was the income need. And you can see here we've been able to meet that. $72,000 in the go-go phase all the way down to age 75. Then they're going to carve back about $500 a month to $66,000 in the slow go stage. And then once they hit 90, they're comfortable with about $5,000 a month. And you can see here with the $800,000, not max CPP, 75% only, they're still able to live the retirement that they were hoping to retire. And you can see their TFSA is still fairly well funded. It's got about $300,000 left in it at the end of the day. So not only do they meet their income and requirement needs, but they also have a bit of an estate left over, meaning that they could spend a little bit more money if they need some care facility or care home later on in life. They have, $250,000 to dip into for that. There's a lot of flexibility in this plan. So for Jim and Pam, they were able to meet their retirement needs. Age 60, $800,000 saved, and not only meet their needs, but have some flexibility all the way through retirement to the end of life where they have a bit of a nest egg. So again, that nest egg could be kept there for maybe future care home needs. It could be given to kids or grandkids or charities or whatever, but there's flexibility there. And they went into this with, ideally we want to retire at age 60. Let's meet with a financial planner, put a plan together and see if it's realistic. In their case, it was. Now let's jump into couple two, Homer and Marge Simpson. Again, the same amount of savings. Homer has 300,000 RSP, 100,000 TFSA. Marge has the exact same, 300, 100, and as I mentioned earlier, the only change I've made is I've bumped their CPP amount at 65 up to 80% from 75%. Now, if we look at the overall goals for the couple, their goal is we want to retire once we hit $1.5 million. Their income need in retirement is still only $72,000 a year. Now, again, they haven't sat down with a financial planner, they haven't run numbers themselves, they just have this big number in mind. So their goal over the next 5 years of working, which is roughly what they figured out they need to do, work till 65, is to save. So they're going to save everything that they can. They're currently living on, as you can see here, about $80,000 a year after tax. And again, in retirement, they're comfortable with $72,000. So if I jump into Homer here, you can see he has a $90,000 income and they're saving quite heavily. Obviously, Marge makes $95,000, Homer makes $90,000. You can see he's saving about $36,000 a year to his RSP. He has lots of contribution room, so that's helpful for him. And then complementing that with some TFSA savings. Marge, very similar situation, $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year into the RSP, and then the rest to TFSA to round out, to give them that $80,000 a year of income. So if we look at their combined assets, so at the end of 2026, you can see it's grown to $924,000. Now at the end of 2030, which is the end of age 64, you can see it's bumped over that 1.5 million. And this is where they figured, yeah, we're good to retire. They picked that age, they picked that number. And so they're working all the way till 65. They burned 5 years of potential retirement. And so yes, they've hit that 1.5 million. They're going to retire, but they're going to draw down the same way that Jim and Pam did, which is 72,000, 66,000, and 60,000. And so the drawdown isn't the same, but they had this big number in mind. Now we can see at the end of it all, they have a huge basket of money. They have over $2 million in their tax-free savings account, which has been maxed out over time. And then they have this non-registered account, but they have about $3 million left over. We could top up their TFSA. I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty. This isn't the purpose of the video, because I know some of you are going to say, well, why would we not take the non-reg and top up the TFSA here? We would. We're not doing that in this scenario for multiple reasons, but I want to show you the amount of money that they have left over. $3 million. They're not spending everything. And so had Homer and Marge actually sat down with their financial planner, said, here's where we're at. We want to retire as soon as possible. Here's our income need. What can we do? How much longer do we have to work? They would have been in the same situation that Jim and Pam were in, where they actually met with their planner. They figured out, when could I retire? How do I draw it down efficiently? All of it. And so you need to sit down as you get closer to retirement. I always say, if you got laid off tomorrow, if you're in your late 50s, early 60s, if you got laid off tomorrow, you should have this answer. Do I need to go back to work or not? Could I afford to fully retire, or do I need to go back to work? And if I need to go back to work, how much do I need to make and how long do I have to do it for? Those are answers you should have. And now, again, hopefully you don't get laid off, but then that ties into retirement. Like, when can I retire? So there's a level of when can I retire, and then how do I do it efficiently? And you need to get that answer as you get closer to retirement. Because a lot of you, that answer could be, you could retire yesterday and you'd have more than enough to do everything you want to do. Yet in your head, you have this big number, or maybe you have an age in mind and you've reverse engineered something that is causing you to work longer. And we see it again and again through our office. And while we do a lot of plans through our office, there's tens, hundreds of thousands of people more that are retiring with this same issue that we don't talk to. And so we're trying to hit home with these people of saying, look, sit down with a planner, run your numbers, see if you're able to retire. Again, you may love your job. You may be trying to save more than you ever need so you can pass it on. But for most of you, you're looking to retire as soon as possible, as long as you have what you need to enjoy retirement. So while Homer and Marge were able to have $3 million left over, when they actually had a plan run, you can see here at age 65, based on everything, that $1.5 million saved that they had, they could draw almost $110,000 after tax, adjusted to inflation, from age 65 till 90. Way more than they'll ever spend. And so in a situation like that, great, perfect, they have lots of money. But would they rather have retired earlier? And I think for most of you, the answer would be yes. So again, as you get closer to retirement, sit down with the planner, map out, like, when is a realistic time? Make sure there's strategy built into there. Look at different options around how you draw down accounts, when you take government benefits. I just got off the phone with someone, they were talking about retiring at 59 and looking at, should I take my ongoing defined benefit pension plan or take the community value? And look, like, these are things you want to look at and compare an apples to apples scenario to see, where are you better off? Everyone's situation is different, but the reality is, a lot of us, mainly because of media and articles that are out there, we get this number in our head, right? Get that number out of your head. Your situation is different than the next person. Yes, some people will need $1.5 to $5 million to retire because they have a very lavish lifestyle. But for the average Canadian, that is not the case. So sit down with your financial planner, figure out what your numbers are and when you can retire. And if you don't want to work longer, start enjoying retirement today. We'll see you in the next video.